Huge week for the Walking Dead franchise. We got news about the Rick Grimes movies. We had that crazy episode Sunday. Today was the finale of the entire Walking Dead Telltale franchise, which has been going on for 7 years. So it's crazy that it's finally come to an end after all this time. And of course, this Sunday is the season finale of season 9. So being a Walking Dead fan has been crazy this entire week. But let's cover the final episode, what I thought about it, of the Telltale Walking Dead series, the final season. So most of us know about what happened with Telltale Games, that they shut down, but Skybound Games, which is a company made by Robert Kirkman, and it's pretty much a company used to oversee the entire Walking Dead franchise. So Skybound had a lot to do with the initial creation of the Telltale Walking Dead series. They also had something to do with the Survival Instinct game, the one on the Xbox 360, where it was a first-person shooter. You could play as Daryl. They also had heavy involvement with Overkill's The Walking Dead, and due to their dissatisfaction with that product, it has been essentially canceled. Even though the game already came out, it's canceled. I don't think it's available for sale anymore, and the console version has been canceled. So the entire game is dead. But Skybound revived the series after 2 episodes. Telltale Games went belly up, and we didn't know what was going to happen if the final 2 episodes were going to be released, but they were released. And I have to say, this season I thought it was okay. As a way to end the entire series, I think it was pretty weak, to be honest with you. And I understand why it would be, because the development of this game was going on at a time when the entire company shut down, and Skybound Games had to rehire these people and get the game finished. So I understand why the quality hasn't really been as good as I would have imagined it to be for the series finale. I mean, this is the final season, the last episode, and it really didn't feel like it to me, honestly. I was very disappointed, to be honest with you, with this episode. I know a lot of people were praising it, but for the final season, for the final episode of the final season, we're used to seasons of The Walking Dead, Telltale Games, having a lot of choice, a lot of different endings. Season 2 and Season 3 had a crazy amount of different endings. So I would have imagined for the series finale, we would have had a lot more choice than what we did, but we had a pretty linear ending. The same thing happened no matter what you did, meaning Clementine survives. She gets bitten, but then her leg gets cut off. Yeah, I know they were trying so hard to kind of hide that reveal, because they had AJ pretty much using the axe to kill Clementine. But I could tell the way they did the camera angle. I knew from that very beginning that AJ chopped Clementine's leg because her leg was bitten. So I kind of had a feeling that's where they were going, and I know they tried to be so clever about it. But I knew as soon as AJ was walking back to the school, and everyone seemed all happy and joyful. I'm like, well, if Clementine died, they shouldn't be so happy, because the timeline didn't even jump. It was like right after, because they had 10 as a walker, and Clementine's hat flowing down the river. So we know that it was very recent when the game moved on to AJ towards the final act of the game. And at that point, I knew, like, oh yeah, Clementine. There's no way Clementine's dead, because they wouldn't all be happy and cheerful. Lewis was Clementine's boyfriend, and everyone loved Clementine, looked up to Clementine as their leader. So if she was dead, people wouldn't be all happy playing with each other and everything. So I knew that people were way too happy and excited, and the ending seemed a little bit too happy, and the mood was too good for Clementine to have been dead. So as soon as I heard Clementine's voice, I'm sure a lot of people were very surprised, but I knew that she was alive. They were trying so hard to recreate the magic of the final episode of season 1. I think they didn't do as good of a job, and ultimately I was really disappointed by this episode. If you want me to give you an honest opinion about it, And the thing that pissed me off the most, I think, about this episode, besides the linear ending, Clementine survives, AJ's there, and they all live happily ever after. Like, okay, it's the final season of the final episode, and a happy ending isn't necessarily a bad thing, but at least have that choice there. Because what do you have to lose if it's supposed to be the final episode of the final season? And when it comes to the choices you made in the previous seasons, it literally, like, none of it came back and affected you towards the end. It literally had no difference, and I felt like everything should have just came full circle towards the end from every single season you played to reward the people who have been invested in this series for all these years. What the hell? What the hell is the point of season 3, the new frontier? I'm really trying to figure that one out, because we spent 5 episodes. The writers were trying to get us so invested into Javier, right? And that whole new cast of characters. Clementine, was there, but she wasn't really as prominent. She was more of a duotagonist than the protagonist and the focal point. I guess because they were trying to experiment with having a protagonist other than Clementine that wasn't necessarily Clementine or Lee, someone completely different. And I feel like they were testing the waters with that, but ultimately they decided to come out with the final season and finish off Clementine's story and all that, which is fine. But I feel like the choices in your third season, I feel like they were talking about this huge war, right? Lily was talking about this huge war between the Richmond and all these other groups. I forget what her group was called, Delta. We didn't get to see any of them, and that would have been so interesting. And that's enough. Like, they didn't flesh the story out too good. And like I said, Javier was nowhere to be seen. I expected to see Javier towards the end, or some of the characters from season 3, but none of them showed up. So I kind of felt insulted. I'm like, I put all this money into this game. I mean, not really, because it's like $25, but I invested a lot of time into it, receiving all the different endings and all that for season 3. And I know a lot of people didn't like season 3, but I thought it was fine. But it's kind of like an insult to not have any, like, for season 3 to not have had any of an effect on the ending or anything in the entire 4th season. Because then it's like, what the hell is the point of this season even existing? It's like season 9 of Scrubs. What the hell was the point of that existing? It was just why? What a waste of time. So I think that's what pissed me off the most, honestly, besides the lack of choice variety, was just that none of the things you did in the past seasons really had any of an impact. And there were still so many unanswered questions, like what happened to Krista, how's Javier doing. We didn't get any conclusion, and it's supposed to be the conclusion to the entire series, so you still have unanswered questions still looming around, that it really doesn't feel like a satisfying end to a series that had such a huge impact on the video game industry. It just fell completely flat, in my opinion. But if there's one thing I could praise about what they did right this season, because it's not going to be all about bashing the entire season and the entire series, what happened. I do enjoy the dynamic. I can't speak. The dynamic between AJ and Clementine. It really was a nod to Lee and Clementine from season 1. I did overall enjoy what they did with AJ, having someone, Clementine, a character who herself is growing up, trying to raise someone, from a young age. It was really some powerful stuff, in my opinion. It was really good. It was really interesting. Her trying to teach AJ the right way, kind of like how Lee was trying to teach Clementine the right way, except it was definitely way more fleshed out in this season, and it seemed to have had much more of a focus and an impact on the story. Like back in episode 3, choosing to shoot Lily, for example. Telling AJ to shoot Lily, or telling AJ to shoot that guy from episode 1 who tried to kill Clementine and AJ. Having Clementine guide AJ the right way or the wrong way, shooting Marlon, for example, pretty much like you would make choices through dialogue, and based on what you told AJ would do one thing or the other, which I thought was pretty cool. Like, if you told AJ, hey, look, I trust you to do what you want to do, AJ shot 10, and you had no choice in the matter at all. That's one example. Another example is AJ just shooting Marlon at just like that. And there's so many choices where you would tell AJ, how things should be, and based on what you say to him, he would do it basically based on what you say. So you would make the choice, but you also wouldn't make the choice. But it's just much more of a focus on dialogue and character development, which I overall thought was a plus. But I also at the same time thought that they were trying way too hard to recreate the magic of season one instead of trying something new and different. I felt like it was overall more regressive than progressive in the story, and it was just trying to go back to old ideas instead of trying something out new. I mean, look, they didn't even try to be original. They were clearly trying to take too many ideas from the first season. Because look, this is the iconic image that we all know from season one, and then look over here. They clearly were just ripping it off, and I don't know. I kind of felt like it was kind of lazy, in my opinion. I know a lot of people like that. Oh, it's a throwback to how things were, but they can never really recreate the magic of the old first season. They've tried and they just have failed. I would have rather much seen them try something new. I mean, like I said, I was really interested in the whole dynamic with all these different groups fighting each other and having a war. I mean, we've seen plenty of groups and clashes between different survivors, but nothing like a full-scale war, because that's what Lily was saying. And the fact that we didn't really get to see that was very disappointing in my opinion. Also, one more thing before we end this video. What do people have against Lewis so much? I get he could be annoying sometimes, but damn, 8% of players? That's a bit harsh. But overall, I thought that the final season of The Walking Dead was okay. I understand. I cut them a little bit of slack because, I mean, these people were pretty much, they were worked to death. The working hours to rush these games out was just ridiculous. I mean, they were worked. They had long work weeks. It was crazy. And then only to lose their job and their livelihoods just like that. So I understand why the actual quality of the game wasn't on par with prior seasons. But like I said, I still find myself at the end, it's very bittersweet, but more of it is bitter in my opinion, because I feel like it really didn't end on too much of a high note. They ever since season 3 started, you could tell that something was going wrong with not only The Walking Dead but Telltale Games as a whole. Just the quality of writing and just the quality of the story really started to deteriorate. I know a lot of people talk about the AMC series, saying that it's going downhill, but really couldn't compare it to the downfall of the game series that we all know and love. So, it was okay. It could have been a lot better. I find myself mostly disappointed about it. Like I said, it could have been so much better, and it could have really been a really good payoff at the end, but they decided to just go the way they went, and some people might like it, but I personally did not. So let me know what you guys think about the final episode of the final season, and overall what you thought about Clementine's journey and how it ended.